This film is one of two made for us by Dominic Pillai for the Between the Storms project.
We shall be meeting people who used and travelled on the ferry service from Folkestone to Boulogne.
The project is managed by us, Pavement Pounders Community Interest Company, and funded by the Heritage Lottery Fund.
Early visits to Folkestone were usually on summer Sundays, when the family made for the sandy beach below the East Cliff. Passing under the low red brick arch of the railway viaduct, it was almost like entering another world with its narrow lanes, salty cobbled streets, and strong aroma of fish, lobster pots and fishing nets drying in the sun. Jellied eel and whelk stalls with their passing whiff of vinegar, tattooed and ear-ringed fishermen, and above all the cry and the shriek of the gulls.
I was master on the Anderida at that time, which was a cargo ship for sealing, and we were coming over from Calais, and I knew that we'd going to have to wait for a berth. So I phoned up to the mate on the bridge and said, just head for St Margaret's Bay, which he did. And then I went up on the bridge and brought the ship in to about a mile off, maybe a little less, and slowed down. And I was looking through the binoculars up at the house, pointing the house out to the mate, who also had binoculars. And I noticed blue under the window, and I thought, well, I had the Cyanithus on the corner at that time, and I thought, no, that Cyanithus is finished now. And I realised through the glasses that it was my wife. She had a blue skirt on, and she was bending over, weeding the bed under the window. And I said to the mate, just keep an eye on her. And while still watching her through the binoculars, I leaned on the whistle, gave a toot, and she shot up and looked around, shook her fist at me, and I said, what do you think? I said, I'll risk my ship to give her a wave, and what does she do? She waves her fist at me.
The ship was lying here, she discharged, and you had to have what they called minimum manning. So instead of the whole crew, you could have a skeleton crew, enough to take the ship to sea in an emergency. And that night everything was fine, and the captain had knocked the crew down and some had gone off, but kept the core crew on. And yes, the watchman was on duty that night, tending the moorings, and during the night the wind got up, as you're all well aware, it was southwesterly and it was storm force. And he called the master, and they came up and they all had a look. And as they were standing, he had the captain had the crew at both ends tending the moorings, and the moorings started to ping, burst. And so he got the engine started because he was going to go out to sea to get out of this, and the moorings all parted. He put the handles full down. With it being southwesterly, she was getting blown off anyway, and he went full pelt for out the harbour. And as he passed the end of the pier there, she had two engines, the port and starboard, and as she came out the harbour, she rolled, and the starboard propeller came out of the water and tripped the engine. Then she rolled back again, and the port propeller came out of the water and tripped the port engine, and a total blackout of the ship occurred. And that's just as she cleared the pier head, so he had no power whatsoever, nothing, and the ship just drifted over and fetched up on Cock Point, just round the corner there. And there's a big concrete apron, and if it hadn't been for the concrete apron, the ship fetched up against the concrete apron. If it hadn't been for the apron there, the ship would have gone over. The captain actually thought he was going over. He couldn't see anything at all until she actually hit the concrete, and he realised he was pinned against it. And she had a gash of about 20 feet gash in the port side of the ship, but she was stuck on it, and ships. From there they had to get what they called the packet yards or ship repairers in to make a temporary repair on her, and then they took her from there, days later, over to Dunkirk to effect permanent repairs. And I came on that morning, came down to the harbour, and I said, I was chief officer then, and I said to the captain, where is she? Is she up in Dover because of the weather? And he says, no, there she is over there. And so he and I, plus the crew, the oncoming crew, we had to get a bus round and then walk down onto Cock Point, onto the apron, and we climbed up onto the ship by means of a pilot ladder to relieve the crew that were on there. And as I say, we were there for quite a few days.
I mean, one time I was fighting to get the Vortigern into the train ferry berth. Filthy night, blowing, raining, and I said to the chief officer, there's no point in both of us getting soaked, you go in the wheelhouse. And it happened that my daughter and my family were with me that day on the ship, and my daughter was in the wheelhouse, and when the chief officer went in, my daughter said to him, he just loves playing with boats. It was one night, about this time of the year, I was in the covered way waiting to berth. The ship was late and it was blowing, and I knew that I had a night of frustration trying to catch up on time and that, and when I got aboard I got out my little typewriter and typed a letter to the staff office to say that I planned to retire on my 60th birthday the following August, so they had 8 months' notice. When I arrived home the next morning and I said to my wife that I was going to retire on my 60th birthday, she said, oh, what have you done? What have you bent? There we are.
I was certainly on the last voyage of the Horsa on the last day of 1991. The P&O ferry's Pride of Canterbury had arrived at berth 13, and as we moved away from the adjacent berth 15 on the Quai Chanzy, her tenor whistle opened up the sky with sound. The Horsa replied with all her baritone might, and with 2 local tugs attending and shrieking out their soprano farewells, the cacophonous tribute lasted for a full 5 minutes, filling the city of Boulogne with sad adieus. It was no use attempting to speak. All one could do was to listen and reflect. The Horsa cleared the quayside, where a small knot of well-wishers had gallantly assembled, and moved away astern, up between the so familiar jetties, to swing in the outer harbour. It was tear-jerking stuff. A memorable day indeed, a wonderful yet poignantly sad occasion, a day when the traditional Folkestone to Boulogne ferry passed into the history books, and the writer was the last to drive off.